Hello and welcome back everybody to the layout build series. Today is mostly going to be about trees. These are Douglas fir trees and I made them completely from scratch. And in this episode I will show exactly how I do it. So let's get started. These are the materials I used to get it done. There are more items, but we'll get to those when we need to. The first thing is a ruler, which is really only used to measure the thing on the right. That thing on the right are stem wires. These will be used for the trunks of the trees. They're quite sturdy and do have a larger gauge wire inside. You could pretty much pick these up at any craft store. Up next is this 24 gauge florist wire. And this will be used to wrap around the stem wire, and this will serve as the branches. This was found in the same store. Lastly are some tools to help cut and handle the wires. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to begin wrapping the 24 gauge wire around one end of the stem wire. All of my stem wires were cut from 6 to 11 inches for a more realistic height. I do also want to mention that this is not my own method. I learned this 100% from Boomer Dioramas here on YouTube. He is one of the best modelers I've seen on YouTube, so if you have a chance, I'd go check him out. Now we just continue with the wrapping of this tree. Before we get to the branches part of this, I do want to show exactly what I'm trying to model. These are a couple pictures I used to study and reference to make sure I get an overall shape and color that's actually realistic. It's super easy to look things up that you're modeling to get a better idea and more of a understanding of what you're actually getting done. So this is the point in which I start doing the branches. I use my finger as a reference and then I just make a loop. I usually wrapped around twice after I did that, and then I moved on to the loop on the other side. You kind of want them to look like dragonfly wings. This simple process is now done over and over until we reach the top. Once we get to the top, we're going to gradually make the branches slightly smaller. Here it is all complete. Now we can cut the rest off and we can make the little end piece another small branch, or we can just wrap it all the way around like I did. Now we just need to reshape all the branches. And there we go. It's finally starting to resemble a tree. For this run, I decided to make 8 total trees. And I will say my fingers definitely felt it. The next step is making the trunk look a little bit better. To do that, I'll be using some sawdust I've kept for a while. The sawdust will fill any gaps and also give a nice rough, realistic texture. Here I'm just sifting the sawdust to get a more finer material to use. The next step is pretty easy. I paint the glue on the trunk and then I sprinkle the sawdust on it. One tree down, the rest to go. All trees are done, and I did let them sit a while so they can dry completely. Next up is to paint the entire tree. To do that, I'm using that same old Rust-Oleum dark brown matte camo paint. When spraying the trees, it wasn't nothing crazy. I just sprayed them from a decent distance to avoid any dripping. And of course, I did this outside in the snowy cold. Alright, so the trees are all painted now, and I'm just making sure that all branches look right before adding the foliage. Before the foliage, I apply a Mod Podge matte to the branches so I can stick the 4mm Static Grass by Woodland Scenics on it. Now I just sprinkle the grass right on the glue. This process will be done pretty much 2 to 3 times so we can make the branches and the foliage a little bit more full and thick. Now if I had some larger static grass, I would have used that instead. At this point, I do choose to show exactly how I cut each loop to make 2 branches instead of just the one. Once I was done applying all the foliage to the branches, I then took all the trees outside and gave them a very light spray of the dark brown that I used previously. And here are the results. Now I was really satisfied. Like I said, I did at the very end spray them down with the dark brown matte paint, and that was just to give them a more realistic look and more of a realistic tone because they're a little bit more darker and I don't want the grass to be the same as my tree. So in the end, I'm actually really happy with how these trees came out. I think they couldn't look any more realistic unless maybe I added some animals, which I probably will in the future, but this is kind of the first run, so this was really just a trial in a sense, but I'm still going to use the trees. That's going to be a wrap on episode 14. I hope you guys enjoyed the video even though it was more focused on just the trees itself. I know you guys probably are looking forward to the track plans of the new section, but we will most likely probably get to that next week. So on that note, I will catch you guys in next week's episode.